Hello, welcome to episode 70 of Learn and Become podcast. That's crazy. It's been 70 episodes this far. And today we're going to talk about survival. Yeah, that's right. The very first step for you not to die is for you to survive, or for you to live. It's for you not to die. You got to survive if you want to do greater things. But step one is to be alive, to be around, and to have the bare minimum to do what you have to do. And the reason why we're talking about it today is because we're organizing a course on survival. It's going to be an English course on how to survive. And the truth is, we don't need to be exceptional at most things in life. Like, you don't need to be a great musician. You don't need to be a great driver. You don't need to be an athlete. You don't need to be like a physicist. You don't need to be many things. But you need to know at least the minimum of a lot of things. For example, driving. You don't need to be a Formula One driver, but you need to know at least the minimum for you not to die. Like the minimum for you to drive from point A to point B, because if you don't, guess what? There could be a situation where you need to drive for a particular purpose, and if you don't know how to do it, you will be in trouble. Actually, that's the reason why my mom learned how to drive when she was maybe 19, 20 years old. My grandfather, he got sick. I don't know what he had, but he wasn't doing good. And the car was there in the garage, but my mom didn't know how to drive. So she couldn't take him to the hospital. And she says that in that very same day, she went from the hospital straight to the driving school. And she says she even got like tears in her eyes because of the situation. And she walked into this driving school. She was like, all right, I need to learn how to drive, because next time I need it, I need to be able to do it. And indeed, she helped him so many times, driving around and taking him everywhere. And she's never been a Formula One driver. And the same thing goes for cooking, for example. You don't need to be a professional chef to know how to cook the minimum, the at least a little bit that will help you to survive. You also don't need to be Michael Phelps to survive in the swimming pool or in the ocean, but you need to know the minimum if you don't want to drown. And that's why we're talking about it today. We're organizing this course. It's called English to Survive, or for surviving. And in the course, we're going to cover a few things, not in the order that I'm going to share with you guys in here. I just want to cover them very quickly. And it's even a very interesting point if you want to help somebody that needs to learn English, but you don't know where to start. this could be something interesting that would help them to go from point 0 to point 1. And we will be talking about sentences that are useful to communicate. You'll learn, or they'll learn how to talk about them, like name, the occupation, age, country, and so on. You also learn about how to talk about things you like, things you need, things you want, how to ask stuff. Of course, also about food and drink, because we all need to eat and to drink stuff. And if we don't know how to communicate about that, we might get in trouble. Also, we're going to talk about questions, like how can you ask questions? And that's important because let's say you're in a country and you don't know where things are. If you need to ask for direction of any sort, you better know how to at least get the basic directions to go from where you are to where you need to go to. Also, we're going to talk about shopping. Like we all buy stuff all the time, especially when we're traveling, when we're in a place that is not home for us, because we need to buy food, we need to buy tickets to go from place to place, we need to buy stuff in general. So that's something that's very important. And also, we'll be talking about airport. Those are the 7 points that we'll be talking about. And something very interesting, if you are not good at something, and now we're kind of moving away from English and just talking about you. So I'll bring up some random skills that you might have thought about learning, but you never dedicated into doing them. And yeah, let's see if that works. But let's suppose you don't know how to drive, number one. And you've always wanted to, and you feel like you need to. And it's been 2 years, 3 years, 5 years since you first thought about it. Take some step, take an action, do something. If you do nothing, nothing will happen. That's simple like that. You need to do something. It doesn't have to be a lot, like you don't need to buy a car, but if you pay the first payment on the driving school, chances are you will go through the process and you'll make it. Another example, let's suppose you want to read more. There's a book in here. You want to read more. You don't need to read an entire book in a week. You can read a page. You read 2 lines, and that's fine. Like I like to read. I don't read as much as I wanted to. And one thing that I found out is that reading something you like makes reading a lot more enjoyable. For example, this book is from my favorite author. And I'm getting the collection of this series. So I have like 5 of them, and I just bought another one. This one, which is still not even still wrapped up. And I'm gonna read it because it's something I like. So if you wanna read at least a little bit, you don't need to read a book a week. You can read a page, 10 lines. I don't know, 1 line if you can't do a page. But the point is, to do something, you don't need to be exceptional. You can be bad, and that's fine. Another example, it's another habit people try to develop, but they never do. Drink water. You don't need to drink 5 gallons of water a day. You can read an extra cup, adding up to what you already do. So it doesn't have to be like something massive, crazy. I'll change my habit completely. And that's how this development into stuff happen. When we do a little bit, actually, like when we take a step, when we do something, chances are we will have more steps. So the course on English for surviving or to survive, the idea is not for it to be the last English course of a person's lives. On the contrary, the idea is for it to sparkle the fire, to start it, to somehow help the person to take the very first step towards learning. And hopefully the person that takes the first step will get motivated, will get inspired to take more steps. So knowing the basics is not... So let's break it down into 2 things. You can know the basics because you need to survive, literally, like you can hate cooking, but you need to know how to fry an egg if you want to survive in extreme needs. So having the basic knowledge will help you. But because you learned the basics, it can possibly sparkle a fire or just start something within you that will lead you towards learning more and being really good at it. So there are 2 different things. Talking about swimming. You don't know how to swim, so it's like, I don't know how to do it. But you learn a little bit, so you don't die. And because you learned a little bit, you started liking it more. So you became really good at swimming because you had the first step of learning how to survive. I think you guys got the point. There are 2 routes. One is the minimum, like the one is do the least you need to in order to survive. And the other one is because you did it, you might find pleasure in what you are doing, which can be pretty interesting, pretty cool. And talking about that, I will cover very quickly a few things that really get in our way when we don't know something and we need to learn at least the minimum to survive. And the first thing is we usually think that we can't. So if you are good at something, you probably don't think like, I can't do it. But if you never did it before, let's suppose you're not good at playing instruments. So you think, oh, I can't, I'm not good at it. But this belief limits you so much because you're always like, oh, I can't, oh, I can't. So of course you can't. You're not doing anything. So how are you supposed to learn it? How are you supposed to be good at it? You just won't because you can't. Henry Ford has a saying that's very popular and it's very interesting. He said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And the idea is, if you think you cannot, you're right. You're not going to do anything. So that's correct. You can't, indeed. But if you think you can, you're also right. Because your dedication will make it possible for you to do something. You might don't reach the goal you had in mind, but surely you will do something. You will learn something. You will get ahead comparing to where you were before. The second limiting belief that usually gets in our way is a conditional state of mind that we usually get into, saying like, when such thing happens, I'm going to do this. So there will always be something to happen. And if you get in this mindset, if you're getting this state of work, there will always be things, possibilities, stuff happening that will get on your way and that will disable you of doing something. So you can't be reactional to stuff. You have to somehow be active. You have to act, not only react. That's the definition of the word. Think about it. Act, you do something. React, you act in a response of something that already happened. So that's why it's called a reaction. Because you're reacting. You're acting in a response of something that happened. So if you need to develop to learn something, instead of thinking, when this happened, I will, no, just I will, and then things will happen. So take the step before you hope for something to happen. Taking step is number one. Things happening is number two. Conditioning your development to external things or to things you cannot control will only break you down. That's what's going to happen. To not use a different term that could be offensive. But it's not going to be beneficial for you. Another point that you have to take into consideration is processes. They're not quick things. That's why it is a process. It's not a one-time thing. Processes take time. And to go through a process, you need to be patient. And you also need to be consistent in what you're doing. So those are the two things you need to have in order to go through a process and develop while in the process. You got to be patient to go through things in the time they take. And second, you need to be consistent. You need to continue. You can't stop. You can't give up. If you fall, you have to get up. If you stop, you have to get back on track. You have to continue. That's how it works. If you stop, nothing will happen. So that's why consistency is so important. We never know what's going to happen if we don't stop. I mean, we can have plans, ideas, but we never know what is going to happen if we don't stop. But we know for sure what's going to happen if we do stop. Nothing. Literally nothing will happen. It's crazy, but that's true. So that's how we differentiate a process that has the possibility of expanding, of getting into good places from a thing, a project that never happens. The ones that stop, they're already fated. Their fate is already to fail. So continuing is number one. Just like this podcast, like I have no idea how many views it's gonna get today. Just a few, like honestly, maybe 20, 30, 50, if a lot, being very positive. And being very negative, maybe a couple of views, like 2 views, 5 views. And if I stop it today, I think I know what's going to happen. Nothing will happen. But if we continue over the years, like this episode is number 70, let's say we're on episode 700, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. And I'm recording it, so it's recorded. I want to see what happens when we're recording episode 700. We're 630 episodes away. So we have a while to get there, but surely we'll get there eventually. Number 4 is school and life are 2 different things. So learning how to drive is very different from learning science to take a test. And don't try to make it like school. Don't try to limit your personal development to your school memories and development. Because if you do it, you will be the one missing out. You'll be the one losing opportunities and chances that could come on your way. Because reality is that school isn't the best format of teaching, like traditional middle school, high school. Even though we learn stuff, it's not the best way, the best method and stuff. So if you want to be really good at something, if you want to do something greatly, don't try to go through that as if it was school, because it's not. Also, another point that's very interesting and very important, always differentiate the theory from practice. For example, if you're learning how to drive, the theory will tell you one thing, but actually driving will show you that it's different. Sometimes theory is just much easier than the actual practice, maybe. But sometimes the theory is just freaking annoying and the practice is pretty cool. So if you're trying to learn something, try it, hands-on. Hands-on is like do it, because by doing it, you will see how good you like it or not. If it's something you do like at all, or if it's something you don't like at all, it could happen. There is this possibility too. But differentiate theory from practice, always. That's very important for you to keep in mind. Another point that's very important when you're trying to develop something and learn something that will hopefully help you in your life is oops, sorry about that. Just clicked on the wrong thing on the screen. Yeah, it's if you're doing it by yourself, alone, or if you're doing it in group. And in group, I don't mean having a group of people in a classroom doing it. I mean, you have a group of people, a community of people that, let's say you're starting to like writing. and you're writing every 2 weeks, and then you meet this group of guys that write every week, and you just start writing with them every week. That's one thing that will help you. It will help you to create better. It will help you to be more consistent, and it will help you to develop the habit more, which is amazing. But it will also help you with security, with motivation, with the ability to be more involved and to be more compromised on the meaning of to have more responsibility over it, because it's also involving more people. So that's something that we could take in consideration. And the last point I want to bring to today's conversation is a sentence by Ralph Emerson that says, learning is a journey, not a destination. Which means that learning something is a journey. It's a way we develop, but it's not a destination. And it applies to everything. For example, remind yourself that I can is a journey. It's not a destination. It's something that has to be present. So this understanding of the process makes a very big difference, and it impacts a lot the way we go about learning. And that's the point. To learn something, you need to expose yourself to that one thing. You don't need to be the best in the world. You just need to know enough to survive. You need to know the bare minimum, at least the amount you need to be fine, to be okay. And that's why we're going to cover all those points that we mentioned before. Useful sentences about you, about things you like, need, want, and things you want to ask. Food and drink, how to order stuff. Also about questions, what, where, when, how, who. Also about shopping, because we all go shopping all the time, especially when we're not home. And airport. Airport is a place where we take the airplane to fly. Very cool. And about that, I just want to bring up a last point. That's very important. Some things you have the chance to choose if you want to do or not. Like you might want to learn how to draw because it's something you like, but it's not something you need. That's fine if you don't learn it. I mean, nothing's gonna happen. Like, you're not gonna get in trouble because of that, right? But swimming isn't something that you want to need, and you don't know how to swim. So just create a division in your brain between things you want but you don't need and things you need, and dedicate into those things you need even if you don't want to do them. And that's what's up. That's the point with this episode. Do what you need, not what you want. Do what you want once you already did what you need. Do the hard work, do the hard stuff, do what has to be done. And I'm sure you're going to get great benefits and great fruits from those decisions. And that's what we have for today's episode. That's episode 70 of Learn and Become podcast. Starting next week, we'll probably be bringing in some guests, some people to talk to us. I hope it's good. I hope it's fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you have any questions, we'll be available and glad to help you with whatever question you might have. Thank you guys so very much. Thanks for joining, for tuning in. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you next episode.